Welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. Thank you so much for joining both of us here today. Before we get into this, I do want to say thank you so much to our sponsor, Nadu Shave Company. Nadu Shave Co. is a veteran-owned, family-operated shaving product company. They sell these single-blade safety razors, which are completely made out of metal. None of this Chinese plastic made shit that's overpriced, causing you skin irritation, and it's junk. Stop buying it. You actually want to purchase from a company that actually cares about their customers, that aren't going to talk about toxic masculinity and blame men for everything while they're trying to sell you a men's product. And all of these subscription companies like Harry's or whatever, they're all trash. So go to nadeushaveco.com, NADEAUSHAVECO.com. Use promo code RISE15 for 15% off at checkout. Nadu Shave Company, where tradition beats modernity. They have the balls to sponsor this show, so you know they must be good.
I love the pitch, dude. I love the pitch.
So,
fuck these people. Buy this shit. After being in sales for 10 years, I'm like, God, finally. Oh, it's so refreshing.
This is what every salesman wants to say.
Love it.
So, Brandon Joe Williams, how you been, man?
Oof. Oh, a lot of exciting things, man. They've just gotten crazier and crazier. I can't believe our last show was a year ago. I can't believe it.
I know.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Flew by, man. Time flies when you're having fun.
My God, a year. I cannot believe it's been a year. I thought like October. When I first thought about it, I was like October, right?
Yeah. Nope. So, but to anyone who doesn't know, who the hell are you?
I'm a human pickle that sues people.
All right, I like it.
I'm an attorney, but I'm not licensed, and I never went to school because fuck all that, and you don't need to. And before I was doing research when I was on the show last time, but now I'm like full blown in like federal court cases and like suing people and like taking people to court and like doing all this craziness. So things have gotten quite a bit crazier. Back in October or maybe December, I started releasing 10-minute videos. So 10-minute videos on a lot of the things I talk about, like super short, super concise. That's when things started to really kind of get even more crazy. The 10-minute videos really sparked a lot of interest in people. I have a 10-minute video on how to never pay taxes again. I have a 10-minute video on how to basically, cruise around in your car or motorcycle without having driver's license or license plates or anything like that. And then I have another one that's 10 minutes on infinite money. And those have gotten very popular, the 10-minute ones. And they're very shareable, and it's been a big breakthrough for everything that we're doing. And then I started doing a lot of the major lawsuits and stuff in January. So I filed one suit in January, and then I filed 2 or 3 in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I've got several in the works, and I've got, it's just never going to end.
You're the one filing them.
So I have clients, and I'm counsel on behalf of the clients, and then I also have a bunch of cases that are my own that I'm going to be filing for myself. So it's all the above. I met this guy. I didn't know what to do. Like, I know the law and I know all these things, but I didn't know the procedure and where to file and how to file and then how to run it through and like how to get to the next step. I met this guy named Joey Kimbrough who hit me up through my email list. And he's like, hey, man, I've been winning a bunch of cases myself for a couple of years now. And I kind of just bashed my head against the wall for a couple of years until I figured it out. I want to show you my work. And I said, yeah, fine. And he showed me some of his work, and I was really impressed. And we started working together. And very, very rapidly, we became the yin to each other's yang. And now we are doing all sorts of craziness. We have a lot in store. We have a lot happening. Credit card companies, mortgage companies, business loan companies, the 3 credit bureaus. Like we're going after everybody, and we're
Oh, I
having an
bet they
absolute
love you
blast.
guys.
Oh yeah, and we're just having a blast, bro. We are having a blast.
So, what exactly are you guys trying to get done? I assume various things, but
So, in this world, in this country, the definition of the term U.S. dollars means negotiable instruments. Negotiable means transferable, and instruments means a document or a contract or a security or a whatever. Negotiable instruments divide into 2 categories. You have an unconditional promise to pay, and you have an unconditional order to pay. An unconditional promise to pay is called a promissory note, or note for short. An unconditional order to pay is a bill of exchange, or bill for short. So these bills that you get in the mail, which from everybody, whether it be a bank or a court or a ticket or everything you get in the mail, they're all bills. Bill means bill of exchange. Promissory note, if you open up your wallet and you pull out one of those green things that buys you food and gas and whatever, and who knows how or why, no one knows. You look at the top, it says their Federal Reserve note. Note is short for promissory note. So in this world, money is actually defined as gold and silver coins, whereas currency or funds are terms that include securities and negotiable instruments. So we don't live in a world that has money. We live in a world of currency or funds, okay? And when you start to realize how that all works, you can sign. So every single time you put your credit card into a credit card reader, it produces a promise to pay. Now, that promise to pay can actually be exchanged with the Federal Reserve at what's called the Federal Reserve discount window. And you can type that into the internet. I can do a little screen share. I know a lot of you guys are audio, but I'll do a screen share and for the video people as like an exclusive bonus, but I will talk as though I'm on an audio show, which I usually do. So if you approve my screen share, I will show you a little bit about how this works if you want to get into this. It's pretty exciting, actually. So if you go to 12 USC 412, and I'm just going to kind of roll a little bit off of from the last time, and I kind of like start over. So in 12 USC 412, there's this thing called the application for notes. You can also look it up. It's the same thing in the Federal Reserve Act. If you go down, you can actually, there's a website, Federal Reserve Act, at the Federal Reserve .gov, which it's not a government agency, which is hilarious. They literally tell you it's not a government agency, but they have .gov, which is hilarious. So if you go down to section 16 of the Federal Reserve Act, and you go down to subsection 1. So subsection 1 of the Federal Reserve Act, section 16, and subsection 2 are literally in the United States Code at 12 USC 412. So basically what it's saying here is any Federal Reserve Bank may make application to the local Federal Reserve agent for such amount of the Federal Reserve notes herein provided. So the way this works is, the way that all loans work, whether it's a car loan or a mortgage or a business loan, doesn't matter. So when you sign the original promise to pay the loan itself, it says here, talking about collateral securities, right? Let me just pull up here. Yeah, here we go. So you can apply for notes, which means I need notes. Please give me Federal Reserve notes. Such application shall be accompanied with a tender. Tender means offer. To the local Federal Reserve agent of collateral in amount equal to the sum of the Federal Reserve notes thus applied for. The collateral securities thus offered shall be notes, which means promissory notes, drafts, which means checks, bills of exchange, or other things, right? So what they're saying here is that, let's say you have a Ford Finance promissory note, right? And let's see if we can pull up an image, right? Master promissory note. So this says master promissory note for Ford Federal Direct Loan. I don't know what this is, but let's just say this is what it is.
Mhm.
So you're going to fill this out. You're going to sign this. Now, this document itself becomes what's called the collateral security. And if you go to the Federal Reserve master account, let's see, I think it's here. Nope. Let's go down. Here it is. I think that's it. Here we go. Now, this website, Master Account and Services Database of the Federal Reserve window, okay? And now it tells you every single bank that has existing access. So let's say you bank at Bank of the West or Bank of America, Bank of America. We have a bunch of different official names. Let's say Bank of America, California, NA. We're going to hit submit. Now it says here, Bank of America, California, NA has had access to the Federal Reserve window to exchange promissory notes for Federal Reserve notes using an application for notes since October 17th of 1994, and the city in which that particular banking institution is located is Walnut Creek, California. San Francisco is the local reserve bank district because there's 12 different districts of the Federal Reserve. San Francisco services like this whole kind of zone over here, and then you have the insurance, and the insurance is FDIC. Right now, you can also look up any banking institution that has requested access that has not been approved for access yet, right? And one of the big ones that people are looking at right now is this one here, Old Glory Bank. So this is a new bank that's in Oklahoma that some celebrities have created. Let me see here. People will see some of these names will be familiar to you. I don't know a lot about this, but I know some of these people. Larry Elder is very popular.
Oh, the black face of white supremacy.
Sure. I don't know.
Some dumbass called him that. It's just ridiculous. Anyways.
Well, whatever. I don't know. I mean, they're right-leaning people that are creating a special bank for freedom and republicanism. And is it real or is it bullshit? I mean, it seems real to me, but who knows? I don't know. I don't care. But my whole point is, you can see here that the Old Glory Bank has put in an application. Because you can see here, Elmore City, Oklahoma, right? So you're going to go here and you're going to say, okay, where are you guys at? Hometown Bank, Elmore City, Oklahoma. Okay, good. So we know that this is that bank, right? Now on January 3rd, 2023, they actually submitted what's called an OC-10 agreement, right? Now people ask me all the time, how do I get access to the Federal Reserve discount window so I can swap horse shit such as bills of exchange and bills and promissory notes for Federal Reserve notes? Well, the answer to that question is an OC-10 agreement, right? And you can go in here and you have U.S. borrowers and you have non-U.S. borrowers, which we went over on the last show. United States is a federal corporation located in the District of Columbia.
Just for anybody who's tuning in right this second and thinking to yourself, what the fuck are they talking about? I have gone ahead, commented our first interview together. Go and watch that. Not 100% necessary, but it would probably make things make a lot more sense. So go check that out after this stream, of course. Stay here and watch this right now.
Yeah, I didn't want to go back and do all that again because it's just like we were already there, you know what I mean? And it was a big show. You said it was the number one show for 2023.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is awesome. So OC-10 agreement, I don't know where want to say maybe this one. Oh, this is it. So here's the OC10, right? If you go down on the OC10, you go to the very bottom, it tells you straight up, what do you need? What is the application package for U.S. borrowers and non-U.S., right? And it tells you straight up, what do you need to submit to us? You need to submit a OC10 letter of agreement, OC10 certificate, OC10 authorizing resolutions for borrowers, and an OC10 official authorization list. So if you were to get these four things and you were to fill them out and send them into the Federal Reserve, you would go on this existing access request list, and then you would be pending, like you can see here, Acceleron Bank. They've been pending for quite some time, and the reason why is because they requested Tier 3 access. I don't know what that means. You have Tier 1, Tier 2,
serious.
and Tier 3. Yeah. Tier 3 is probably the one where you can just swap almost anything for Federal Reserve notes. You can give them like a fucking toilet paper with blood on it, and they'll give you Federal Reserve notes, right?
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I'm just saying, like, you know.
I'm pretty sure this is where you interchange children with cash.
Pretty much. I mean, you could swap a birth certificate at this window, and you'd probably get paid for it.
Do you want to just give a quick synopsis of like what this is for the layman?
Well, the financial stuff that we're going over now is kind of totally separate than from what we talked about earlier. So it's kind of like we can almost just keep going as it is, and this show is going to be very separate than the previous show.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a national or work out your citizenship or your nationality or do absolutely anything at all to get involved with the financial end of all this. A lot of people ask me that, and it's just completely unnecessary. You may want to. Like I didn't really get involved into all the financial stuff until I had all my personal stuff worked out, because when you have all the personal stuff worked out, you are much more grounded, and you're much more solid, and you're much more protected in your position. But even with that said, I mean, there's just the financial stuff is one of those things where everyone feels like they're doing something illegal or wrong, and they're worried, but no one's getting in any trouble because it's really not illegal. And the reason why is because all finances in this country and in most countries is just complete fraud and criminality from literally A to Z, like to the most maximum possible level.
100%.
To the point where it's just so fucked, and it's just so illegal, and it's just so insane that you get involved, and it's just like you're just part of the club, man. It's just ridiculous, right? So what happens is, so the way this works is you have this window, okay, that these guys get, you know, and you can fill out your forms, and you can get window access. I'm going to get window access at some point. I don't really know how exactly, but I'm going to do it for sure at some point, right? Now, the way that window access works is very simple, okay? So you let's say you're a business loan broker. You take the original promissory note, and you write an application for notes because you have an OC10 agreement for the window, and you say, I need Federal Reserve notes in exchange for this promise to pay that the guy promised on the original document. The Federal Reserve gives you Federal Reserve notes for that application, and then you give back the original applicant his own money, essentially. He's the one who created the value by signing and promising to pay the original note. So you ask yourself, how did that happen? Well, the way that happened was you have to go to what's called UCC3, which is UCC stands for the Uniform Commercial Code. And if you go to UCC3, it's all about negotiable instruments, right? And you can see here what is a negotiable instrument. It's very clear. It's an unconditional promise or order to pay a fixed amount of money with or without interest or other charges, which sounds complicated, but it's almost everything that you do and everything that you get fits within this category, right? Now, a Federal Reserve note, right? The word note means promissory note, right? So the thing is that these are all promises to pay, and it's promise from the federal corporation located in the District of Columbia called United States to pay a federal corporation called the Federal Reserve Bank money at some point in the future, right?
Just quick side question. Do you still run into people that believe the Fed's extension of government and these Federal Reserve notes are money is what they think money is?
Yeah. I mean, people defend their own reality of what they think the world is, but it's not really very common anymore. I mean, most people are pretty aware of the fact that something is wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't know what, you know. So if you look at UCC Article 3, Section 102, it literally tells you, like, there's no way to even, you know, somebody who's like desperately and frantically trying to defend their position and defend against all this, you can kill them showing something like this to them. This article applies to negotiable instruments. It does not apply to money. See that?
So wild.
So then you ask yourself, okay, and then here's the Bill of Exchange Act from 1882, and you go down and right in the definition section, what does it say? Bill means bill of exchange, and note means promissory note. What's in your pocket? A Federal Reserve note. What is a note? A note is a promissory note. What is a promissory note? It is not money. It is a negotiable instrument. Would it fit in the category of a promise to pay or an order to pay? It would fit within the unconditional promise. That's what it is. It's an unconditional promise. It's a negotiable instrument. It is not money. It is currency or funds, right? Now, the thing about this is currency or funds or negotiable instruments or promises to pay, they're all securities. Same shit you're going to see on the stock market. What's in your pocket is the same shit on the stock market, okay? So how does that work and how does that blah, blah, whatever, right? So the way that it works is very, very simple. Okay, you have all these different points of UCC3, and if you really want to learn all this and you want to unlock literal infinite money in your life, just read UCC3. Read all of these different points. There's not that many, and a lot of them are very, very short. If you read all these and clear up all the definitions of the words, you will have infinite money. I can pretty much guarantee you. But the way that it works is when you this is the section 3-205 that shows you what happens when you sign. Just using your name. You just squiggle a thing, or you do, like for me, BJW or Brandon Joe Williams, and you just write your name in squiggles in cursive, right? What is that, right? That's called a blank endorsement. It's like writing a blank check, right? So when you create that thing, what you're doing is you're basically, if I go back to this and I type in, let's see here, blank. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Negotiation does not state a payee, payable to bearer or to order. I believe it's this one. Here we go. Here it is. So the way it works is when you release the promissory note, let's say a mortgage. When you release that promissory note and inside of the signature is not a signature when it comes to financial instruments. The signature is actually an endorsement, and most people have never seen it spelled with an I. It's INDORSEMENT. The definition of the word endorsement, which took me forever, I had to figure it out on my own because you will not find a definition anywhere that makes any sense. It's the clarification, orders, and commands associated with the exchange and transfer of a negotiable instrument. That is the definition of endorsement, right? So when you sign with just your name and no additional information, you're doing what's called a blank endorsement, which means you're unconditionally releasing that security payable to the bearer, meaning whoever has it, whoever wants to claim it, it's just floating through the air now. And if anybody would like to just grab it out of the ether, pull it down, and claim it, it's now theirs. It's like a blank check because it does not state a payee. It does not state where is the proceeds of this particular swap going to, right?
Yeah.
So what the banking institution does after they receive your blank endorsed promissory note, which is exchangeable for Federal Reserve notes at face value. In fact, let's say you have a promissory note that is, $380,000 plus interest over 30 years, like a mortgage. The face of the promissory note is actually the value of the maturity value of the note. That includes all the interest through the entire 30 years. That's the value of the note. The value of the note is not the 380,000 original. It's the 380,000 original plus all the interest plus all the timelines maxed out to a full maturity date, okay? So that particular promissory note, what they do is they receive that promissory note with a blank endorsement, and then we actually went out and started requesting document evidence of the mortgages and stuff like that that my people, because I have a huge audience now, had gotten previously. And these fucking banking institutions started actually sending us processed documents. And these are a different type of endorsement called a special endorsement, which you'll see in 3-205 up top here, special endorsement, right? So a special endorsement states the payee, and it has additional conditions when you sign, right? So what they're doing is they're placing these stamps on the blank endorsed instrument that you have released without condition, and they're claiming the value of that note. They're saying pay to the order of, just like a check terminology says that if you look at your checkbook, it says pay to the order of. This is the name of the check name that's going to be placed on the check that comes back from the Federal Reserve when they swap these instruments, right? So you basically do a blank endorsement. They take the instrument payable to the bearer. They put a special endorsement on it. They claim the value of the instrument. They exchange this instrument at the Federal Reserve window through an OC-10 agreement, application for notes. And then they receive Federal Reserve notes through the Federal Reserve discount window, and then they turn around and they hand you your own notes back to you at interest. And this is how loans are funded. Now, the fascinating thing is you can write a special endorsement on the original financial documents yourself and bypass all of that. You can actually go into, get a brand new car, and when you sign, without recourse, there's a bunch of different things you can sign for an endorsement. There's a lot of information. Not a lot. There's actually not a lot of information for endorsement, right? So without recourse is a formula used to disclaim responsibility for future non-payment, especially of negotiable financial instruments. Without recourse means if I don't ever pay, then fuck you. I'm not kidding, literally. I'm not kidding. Literally, that's what without recourse means. Like, no joke, right? So you can go into a car dealership. Let's say you want to get a brand new C8 Corvette. Okay, you can go in there and you can write every single document they put in front of you. You're gonna take your ink pen and you're gonna write without recourse, pay to the order of, your name in all capital letters, by, line. That's where you're gonna do your squiggly horse shit, your signature, however you normally do it. Below that, you're gonna put your first name, your middle initial or middle name, your last name, comma, and then whatever it is your title is in relationship to that transaction, which is probably going to be like an agent or authorized representative, something like that on behalf of whatever it is that you're doing a transaction for. You could even say, financier, or you could even be kind of silly with it. It doesn't really matter a whole lot. Now, if you put this type of endorsement on all of your bills, even a mortgage, on all of your loan documents, now what happens is that you are not releasing that particular document without conditions. You're saying, guys, you're allowed to go to the Federal Reserve window, get all the funds or currency associated with exchanging this thing for Federal Reserve notes. But the only place that all of those funds can come to are this name in all capital letters, which we went into in the last show. It's a corporation that was opened when you were born of your name in all capital letters. Okay. that corporation is actually the one that is involved in the loan process. So it's basically like, let's say you had a corporation called Starbucks, and you get a loan for $100 million, and you sign the promissory note like this. You're basically saying, look, you can go to the Federal Reserve window, you can exchange this for notes, but then the only place that you can bring them back to is back to my corporation name. So what that means is the corporation opens a $100 million loan, and then within seconds, once the promissory note is swapped for Federal Reserve notes, those Federal Reserve notes are instantaneously placed back on the account. Now, a little interesting. The principal balance of the loan was $100 million, but what about the interest? Because the promissory note is worth the face value of the entire maturity of the note. So let's say a $100 million loan with interest is $117 million. So when they go and they swap that note for Federal Reserve notes, they're going to get $117 million back. So on a $100 million loan, you're going to be now placing a $117 million payment down on that when that money comes back, right? So what you do is you just give the banking institution the additional $17 million, and you call that a processing fee. And if you do it that way, it literally just zeroes out the account instantaneously. And then without recourse is additional insurance. Without recourse is, if something goes wrong, if I didn't do this right, if you think something this, if you did, none of that matters, bro. You process this, non-payment is not my responsibility. If they accept anything signed without recourse, even if you just did without recourse and not pay to the order of, you can never, ever, 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 ever be liable for any non-payment of anything that you ever sign without recourse.
Baller move. So who is the main, I guess, entity that's utilizing this process?
Everything in your whole life is utilizing this except you. Meaning, when you receive a bill from your utility company for your electric or your gas, that bill is actually a bill of exchange. You will find on the bottom of the bill of exchange, you will find account numbers, you will find routing numbers, you will find all sorts of banking information. On almost anything you will ever receive, IRS bills have banking information on them. You can take those bills and you can actually write special endorsements on those bills and mail them back. And if they don't process them, you can actually sue them, which is some of the stuff that we're doing now. But now what's funny is there's only one organization in all of North America that will process these things and follow the law with absolutely zero difficulty, resistance, or terror or intimidation. Can you guess what organization that is?
No clue.
The Internal Revenue Service.
Huh. That makes a lot of sense.
The IRS follows the law better than any organization in all of North America. If you take a bill of exchange that they send you, which is an unconditional order to pay, anytime the IRS has ever told you, you need to pay this amount by this date, that is a bill of exchange. It is an unconditional order to pay. You can put a special endorsement on that IRS bill of exchange. You can attach a very calm, very friendly, very non-combative, non-violent cover letter to it on how to process it and why. Send it back. You will never hear from them again. They will process that payment. Now, American Express, Citibank, Capital One, none of these financial institutions will do so. You have to litigate aggressively, and they will fight to the death before they will allow that to happen. But the IRS, one letter, and they will definitely, for sure, unless they completely lose it, they will for sure process the letter without any fanfare or difficulty or upset.
So one thing I want to point out, I guess quickly revisit from last show, is you recommended while doing all of this, no matter at what point you are in the journey, to basically keep your head low, don't get feisty, don't get an attitude with people, try and exit quietly. Is that fair to categorize it like that?
It's you can be as loud as you want, but it needs to be friendly, it needs to be peaceful, and it needs to be fun, and it needs to be ideally humorous. Not everyone can do that. But it needs to be a good human to human interaction at all times. You need to as long as you have that element, you can be as loud as you want. But as soon as you start to fall into fuck you, you're a piece of shit, you know about all this, you're destroying the world, your intention is to enslave the world, you're this, you're that. If anyone in any of these companies knew any of this information, they wouldn't be there. Why in the fuck would someone work at the Internal Revenue Service in a cubicle for $18 to $25 an hour if they knew about how to process negotiable instruments? It's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Okay? These people do not know any of this information. Everyone that you're going to talk to, everyone that you're going to interact with does not know any of this information. If they know a little bit, maybe a teeny tiny bit, but they don't really totally get it at all. When you understand that and you fully wake up to that reality, you're no longer angry thinking that everyone's out to get you and everybody knows shit that you don't know and they never told you, and none of that's true. That's the biggest crock of shit. I thought that for a long time too. Biggest crock of shit ever. No one knows. The IRS does not know. The Department of State does not know. Everybody at Bank of America and American Express and all these different companies and your mortgage processing company and even the lawyers that work for your mortgage process company, even the fucking CEO probably, does not know a lot about this information and how exactly it works and why. You have to be the bigger person. You have to be the educator. You have to be the enlightener. You have to assist others to learn. And if they don't want to learn, that's where litigation comes into play. Litigation is like daddy spanking son because son misbehaved. That's the energy that I take when I take litigation. It's not kick the door and burn the whole building to the ground and kill their entire bloodline. That's aggressive and extremely overdone, and it's not necessary at all. It's learn this, and then I'm teaching you something cool. I'm teaching you something that's going to help you and your family too. And if you don't want to learn it and you want to be an asshole, even though I'm trying to very calmly and friendfully explain it to you, that's when we're going to move into some spankings, which is going to be litigation and all that kind of thing. And then, but you always want to keep that door open. You know what I mean? Like you might litigate for 2 or 3 months, and then all of a sudden they call you and they go, "Look, fuck, I fucked up, blah blah blah. I want to make this right, and blah 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 blah." Like you always want to keep that door open. It's not a Genghis Khan mentality because these people just don't know, bro. They really don't know. They really, really don't know. Nobody knows, and you just have to realize that. I was watching there's an account I really like on Instagram called Soul Sai, which is like one of my favorite accounts. It's like poetry and stuff like that. And one of the poetry was, for every minute you spend hating someone, it's 60 seconds of you robbing yourself of the happiness you could have had. It's sort of like,
yeah.
We're angry because we believe that these people know and they intend to do us harm, but that is false. That anger can only live in a false reality. That is a false reality. And when you realize it's a false reality, you're no longer angry because it's just not fucking possible. It's just simply not possible. The people working at the DMV, are you fucking kidding me? If they had a clue, do you think they'd fucking be doing that stupid shit? You gotta be fucking kidding me, bro. There's no fucking way in hell. Absolutely. So, and then
That's
you can
fair.
say, well, that's not an excuse and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's not. But the thing is that it's not an excuse for their behavior, but it's also not a reason to set them on fire, in the public square. It's somewhere in the middle, and as long as you think that way, and as long as your mindset is that way, you can be as loud and as crazy as you want. I'm fucking nuts, man. I'm sending shit everywhere, doing all sorts of crazy shit. I never have any issues. Everything's smooth. Everything's fine. Because I never, ever, unless it's a bar card attorney, I like to fight them. Those are fun. But besides those guys, everybody else, they're my friends. They want the education, they want the information, and I would like to provide it to them. And it's very smooth. It's very easy. I may have to repeat myself a few times. That's about as bad as it gets. But it's the people who are threatening, who are violent, who are hostile. Those are the ones who have troubles.
Who, at least in your personal experience, who or what organization or corporation, who puts up the biggest fight when you're going through all this?
Financial organizations, American Express, Citibank, Capital One, mortgage companies. I mean, they're willing to bleed to death to keep this thing illegal. They're willing to die to not follow the law. When you send in a promise to pay, an unconditional promise to pay, or an unconditional order to pay, you have technically paid the account. The definition of payment in the legal world is the satisfaction of an obligation or performance of a contract. The way that you're supposed to be performing is it's called a bill of exchange, because it's kind of silly and weird, but you're supposed to just receive the bill of exchange and then send it back like a ball. It's like playing catch with your dad. Dad throws you the baseball, you're supposed to throw it back. That's really all we're supposed to be doing. If you read the law, they create a bill of exchange and send it to you, and then you write orders on the face of it and send it back, and then boom, it discharges the account. And that's how America is supposed to operate in the banking world since 1933. The Emergency Banking Act of 1933 is when this whole thing got started. Prior to 1933, it was a completely different system. After 1933, if you look up 18 U.S.C. 8, which I can show you here, and I'll explain it for the audio listeners. So since 1933, this is mind-blowing, 18 U.S.C. 8, right? It's called obligations or other securities of the United States. The term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposit, bills, checks, or drafts for money. So what that means is that all your bills, your is a really fascinating subject. So people say your bills, meaning it's your responsibilities and no one else's. That is entirely false. Every single bill you have ever gotten, your phone bill, your electric bill, your internet bill, your credit card bill, your gas bill, every single bill you have ever gotten is an obligation or other security of the United States since 1933.
Of the United States, which is a corporation.
You can send your bills to the government, and by law, they have to discharge them and perform on them. By law. The problem with that situation is it takes them a very long time to perform on those, and it's the time that kills you. You don't have 6 months to pay your utility bill. That's the issue, right? But there's other ways to fix that. There's other way around that, and that's why, the IRS, when you endorse the bill of exchange and you send it back, they'll process it. They don't care. They'll go to the Federal Reserve window and they'll exchange that bill of exchange for Federal Reserve notes. They're very happy to do so. They're very pleased to do so. They won't send you a letter telling them that they did that, and they won't give you a receipt of payment, but they'll just simply disappear. You see, there's a difference, right? If you pay the Federal Reserve notes, thank you very much for your payment. Here's a receipt. The whole night, they want to put the illusion, right? But if you pay with a bill of exchange or a promissory note, they just disappear. It's just poof. There's no receipt. There's no thank you for your payment. There's no nothing. It's just poof. Sometimes you'll get a thank you for your payment, but my point is that they will process it. They just may not sound the trumpets. You see the difference?
Yeah. Well,
because they don't really want people doing that, because now what happens is that all debt, which is an illusion, people wake up to the fact that it is an illusion, and then the control mechanism that they have built through debt disappears overnight.
where does since this has been in the news, where does all of the the college loans, where does all of that fit into this?
You can
Like,
ask
could you do the same thing?
Oh God, yes. Unsecured is the easiest thing in the world, because what are they going to do? Take shit from you? They can't take anything from you. So things like student loans is a fucking absolute joke. You call your student loan company, you say, I'd like a payoff bill or bill of exchange. They're going to send you a full value payoff bill of exchange through email or through mail. You're going to write on the face of the instrument. So the way this works is, I'm going to show this to you, right? This is really, really cool. This is the UCC 3 rule as to how this works. It's UCC 3-114, right? Now, let's say that the document itself says blah, 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 and this, and blah, blah, blah. You need to pay by this date, you need to pay by that date, and blah, blah, blah. And do you realize that you can take a bill and you can just take a pen and you can just start crossing shit out, bro? And you can just write in whatever you want. Payable on this date. You can change the due date. You can change anything you want on the bill. And it says here, if an instrument contains contradictory terms, typewritten terms prevail over printed terms. Now here's the big one. Here's the mind blower. Handwritten terms prevail over both. And words prevail over numbers. So when you take your ink pen and you just start writing trash on the front of a fucking bill of exchange, you're rewriting the way that the bill is structured, and what you handwrite on the bill becomes precedent over all printed and typewritten terms on the bill. Now, if you do that with the IRS, they won't make a lot of fuss about it. If you do it with anybody else, they're going to ignore you and make a big fuss and say that you're crazy and send you letters that are stupid and form letters and all this. You have to litigate to get this done through most organizations except the IRS. The IRS is very easy to work with. Anybody else, you have a bit of a trek on your hands. You're going to need to force their hand, because they are going to play dumb. A lot of them are dumb, legitimately, but if they aren't dumb and they really don't know, which I think accounts for 80% of everything that I see is they don't know. The other 20% of what they do know, they're going to play dumb, or they're going to ignore it, or they're going to say that it isn't a real payment, or they're going to say flat out, we are not accepting that as a payment. And I hate to keep screen sharing, but I have to go back and forth.
No, you're good.
Because a lot of times I forget, and then we're just stuck on a screen share, and then the thing's really small. So if we go to UCC 3-603, subsection B, we have here, so this is a really fascinating thing, right? Tender of payment. Now, fascinating, because everybody thinks they know what that means, right? Nobody has a clue what that means. So tender means offer, unconditional offer. Does not mean acceptance. So let's say you're like, oh, if you get me an invoice, I'll pay this. That wouldn't be a tender. A tender is, here's the money for the services rendered. And you extend your hand, and there's a bunch of cash or a credit card or a check in your hand ready to go. Now, them accepting it or not accepting it has nothing to do with tender, right? Tender is just the unconditional offer. That's it. Tender is a very interesting term, because you say legal tender, which is on the Federal Reserve notes. If you look on there, it says legal tender for all debts, public and private. Tender means just the offer. It doesn't mean, okay? Now, payment means performance of an obligation. Most people think that payment means that you send Federal Reserve notes. It's a joke. That's not at all what payment means. Payment has absolutely nothing to do with Federal Reserve notes. Payment means performance on an obligation or contract. You went into a contract to deliver apples. Payment would be the moment that you tender those apples. So you drive up in the truck. You say, here's all the apples that you ordered. Where would you like me to drop them off at? At that point, you just tendered payment on that contract. That's what tender of payment actually means, right? Now, subsection B. If tender of payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to the person entitled to enforce the instrument, meaning the person who kind of created it or the lender, shall we say, and the tender is refused. So what would that mean? That would mean you show up in a truck full of apples. You say, hey, I got your truck full of apples. Where do you want them? And they say, we didn't order a truck full of apples. Get the fuck off our property. At that point, tender has been refused. Now, when tender is refused, there is discharge to the amount of the tender. So if the original contract was for 300 apples and you offered 300 apples and they refused, in law, they did actually technically receive the 300 apples. So when you offer a promissory note or when you offer a bill of exchange through a tender and they say, oh, we don't accept this type of payment, instantaneously the full value of whatever you tried to tender, if you tried to tender a bill of exchange worth $15,000, there is instantaneously discharge of $15,000 off of the account, even if they deny the payment.
Wow.
So once you unconditionally offer a negotiable instrument to settle a contractual obligation, they do not have the option to deny that tender of payment. It is not even an option. Them denying it or saying they're denying it is a physical impossibility. It cannot be done. They either accept your tender of payment and process it, or they do not, and the payment applies to the account either way. It makes absolutely no difference. Now, they will pretend as though this part of the law doesn't exist. When you litigate, it's very, very, very easy to win. You tendered a payment unconditionally. They refused said tender. Thus, there is discharge. But there's more to it than that. They fucked with you. They wasted your time. They closed your account. All these things. Now, all these things, because they broke the law, all these things become part of damages that you are now looking for relief to address. So not only is that $15,000 payment going to be applied to the account, but you're also going to walk away with a big bag of cash on top of that because they did massive law-breaking behaviors that are insane. The IRS will never behave that way. But all the credit card companies will, all the mortgage companies will, and they will do it until you basically have a shotgun in their mouth. They'll literally won't stop until their life is flashing before their eyes. And then at that point, they shape up.
But they have no choice because eventually they have to accept it.
They have absolutely no choice. And if anybody's watching this saying, oh, the U.S. courts and all this, and they just follow, they just do this. No. The people who wrote all these laws and the way that all these laws are structured and the way that infinite money is structured and the way that banking is structured is a religion. The judges and the U.S. courts are there to make sure that the laws are applied as though they're supposed to be applied. To go against these laws is to go against the religious fabric of what we're talking about in banking. That's why I like to study these laws and study these things, because these are things that they cannot deny. The courts, especially the federal courts, they physically cannot deny these things. They will have men in black coats showing up at their doors if they try to fuck with this. This is the core. This is the skeletal structure of the entire banking world. If you think that a judge is going, no, that doesn't matter, blah, 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 no. Absolutely not. The chances of you losing when you're this deep in the skeletal structure of banking is fucking zero. You have a 0% chance of losing at this.
So, how do I phrase this? Why exactly can the banking industry not run without these very things? Because it seems like this is something like a vulnerability that they would want to patch up.
Yeah, this stuff's so old and it's so intrinsic that they can't patch this up. This is not a loophole. This is like the Bill of Exchange Act is from 1882. This is a 150-year-old plus
Part
stuff.
of the foundation.
There's no way. This isn't going anywhere. The only way that any of this is going anywhere is if Babylon's on fire and burns to fucking ground. That's it.
We could only be so lucky.
Well, that's the only way any of this shit that I'm explaining in this podcast is going fucking absolutely anywhere. Let me tell you. All right. So, do I think that's going to happen? Yeah. That's why I do what I do. I think that my job is just to teach people how things really are, and then I truly believe in my own heart that as more and more people are awoken to the reality of what truly is, they are not going to like it. And then as more and more people are awoken to the truth of what really is, they will demand that change take place. My job, I feel like, is to accelerate that process and to prevent a violent uprising of that process being completed. That's all.
Yeah. That's, first of all, very admirable. Peace should definitely be the number one option at all costs, although I do believe we have been aggressed upon enough that violence wouldn't necessarily be immoral at this point. However, the state itself is violence, and they know how to respond to violence. And so
well, the problem is violence begets violence, and then it ping-pongs forever for thousands of years. Even the globalist agenda is all based off of the original revenge that they want to have when the Russian king came down to Hazaria and kicked them all out for sacrificing children to Baal. And so they traveled around and they became this fucking roving fake Jew sect of Hazarians. And then, ever since then, they've wanted to get revenge on the Jews, revenge on the Russians, and then somehow it became revenge on the whole fucking planet. I don't know how that happened. They went insane. But the thing is that the entire globalist agenda is a revenge agenda that is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. So when you begin to go down a revenge path, typically it does not end, even after many, many hundreds of years. So the thing is that revenge is the promulgation or continuation of something that just will never end. It just never ends. And I feel like the true power, it's just like what Christ says. I'm not a Christian necessarily, but everything in law is Christ based. So it's kind of intrinsic. Forgiveness and forgive they, because they do not know that of which they do, and all the things that he says. It's like a non-revenge based mentality is a mentality that ends there. It's the end of the war. The only way you can end the war is by not getting into the revenge and not getting into those things. Otherwise, the war continues forever. So a war, by definition, is something that continues until somebody decides to not seek revenge. You can almost define war as that, literally.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just sort of like, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. Especially as a guy, like our masculine energy is to, crush and destroy that of which we feel we need to protect. So I'm not saying.
Oh, I love being spiteful.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's natural. But the thing is that it's there's a time and a place, and it should be predetermined as to how far that revenge will go. Otherwise, it just
yeah.
If there's no finish line, there never will be a finish line.
It's a good point.
That's kind of the issue,
So my attitude towards everything that I've been doing has been ultimate. Like my first goal is to just delegitimize these institutions, just make them pointless, basically. And it kind of sounds like this is what that does, but with the financial side. Um, I like to be able to have people be self sufficient, take accountability, rely on their neighbors, not the state. So therefore, the existence of the state in all the capacities that it's in, or in all the capacity that is available to us now, is pointless. Uh, Instead of fighting what's going on in the schools, take your kids out of school. Just kill the demand for it. Uh, Go start your own school with all your neighbors. Take away the legitimacy of the state itself, and if we're self sufficient, then we don't need as large of a state. Plus, it's peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so to kind of piggyback on what you were laying out. That's what it seems like it's doing. It's just delegitimizing all of this, and I guess that's why these institutions act like a cornered animal, because they are.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away all the value and you start signing with a special endorsement, the loan instantaneously discharges. There is no repossession. There is no default. There is no foreclosure. There is no payments. There is no anything. It's just draw it up, exchange it with the Federal Reserve window, pay it off, discharge the whole thing, and then they get to keep the interest payment on the value of the instrument. That's it. It's opened and closed within minutes.
That's wild. That is just wild. Do you believe that there is a obviously most people don't know about this or any of the other things that you teach in your contract killer course, of just the actuality of what life is, at least how we're experiencing it in this country. Do you believe that people are just ignorant of this, or is there a intentional effort to keep this information suppressed?
I
Or
believe
both, I guess.
99.9999999% of it is ignorance. The chance of you meeting someone that actually does know a lot of this information is like slim to none throughout your entire life as of the last several decades. Now that we're starting to see a lot more of this everywhere, especially in conservative channels and that kind of thing, obviously that's going to be changing. My whole goal is to change that as rapidly as possible. But up until now, no, there's almost no chance that you are even going to have access to speak with someone that has an extensive amount of information on any of these things, unless you're
Yeah.
in extremely high political groups or Jeffrey Epstein type situations. There's no way you're even going to have access to even speak to someone who may be of that category.
And that kind of seems like what this type of information is the secrets that all of those people would have known for just decades and decades and
Well,
decades.
they designed this. I think, in my own opinion. Someone designed this. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
So are these, I guess, call it an off ramp, I guess, were they intentionally put in for this, or do you believe that it was, and this is speculation, of course, but, or was it kind of just because the organization is, they kind of developed that way and it was like, oh shit, we built that by accident?
So I actually think it's different than both options that you gave me. I think what it is that the world that we live in is a symptom of our own minds. And I believe that our own collective thoughts and our own collective minds equal that of which we experience. And I believe that people, human beings, need a villain. Because without a villain, you have no story. Without a story, you have no life. What is life worth living without a story? And I believe
It's
that
true.
villains are necessary. And villains are ignored, and villains are created, and villains are demanded, and villains are begged for. And we ignore, and we ignore, and we ignore the villain for a long, long time until the situation gets so bad that it is actually a genuinely terrifying. And then all of a sudden, the human race springs into fucking action because now finally there's something exciting worth living for, because it's a beautiful story that we can all share and enjoy together. And I believe that the human race is literally a cycle of that cycle over and over and over and over and over. And that cycle may take 20 years or 30 years or 80 years or 120 years. Every video game is the same cycle. Every movie is the same cycle. Every book is the same cycle. Everything is the same cycle. And I believe that is what humanity is. And I do not complain about the fact that humanity is that way. I simply embrace it as a fabric of our existence. It is not something worth having an opinion over. It is not something worth prophesizing over. It is not something worth judging. It's like judging nature or judging God. It's insane to judge this particular aspect of man. Literally psychotic. I mean, if someone tried to judge this particular aspect of human fabric, I would think that they were worse than playing God. They were literally degrading God himself. It's not my place to judge that, and I think that's what it is. And I think that's what it will always be. But I do believe that we are on a special one this time. I believe this one is a huge one. This is a big one. This is a really, really intrinsic, massive, humongous. This is the last one of this super low vibration civilization that we've been living for many, many, many decades or hundreds of years. And I think that the entire baseline vibration and the entire baseline mentality of the entire human race is going through a monstrous permanent shift as we speak.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We are definitely living in unprecedented times.
Yeah.
It's
yes.
Yeah. What a time to be alive.
Oh, dude, totally.
The collapse of Rome with Wi-Fi.
Yeah. With Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's so. I guess one question I do have is because it does seem as though even normal people all the way up through economists that get contacted by Fox, CNN, whatever, they're all the same shit. But it just kind of seems like everyone understands that this financial system that we are under right now is maybe not right at the collapse, but it's closer than it ever has been. And something is coming. So I guess this is kind of a two-part question. Is it, with the collapse almost inevitable, is it better to be within the system or without or outside the system when that collapses? And second part is, if, regardless of the answer for the first, is this something that, even if it doesn't matter in the end, should they just exit the system anyways? Because I guess we'll just leave it there.
You can operate inside the system and outside the system at the same time, very, very comfortably. It's not too complicated, in my opinion. It's worth the effort. There's nothing more rewarding, in my opinion, in the world, besides maybe love or duty or honor. That's about it. The only thing that could be higher than this, in my opinion. The way that I feel is the true way that we should all be behaving. Not to say that I'm judging people or saying that they should through some sort of obligation. It's just like, in my head, I think that people who learn this kind of information, I don't see how you couldn't naturally want to behave this way, is that I feel like man is basically good. And I feel like what man is lacking is the true information of which he needs to make the best decisions for his life and for his family and for his world. I feel like my job and what I would like to see people doing with my information is just simply sharing the reality of the truth so that other people can make better determinations with their future and their life however they see fit. And I feel like the human race is going through a moment now, is going through a huge transition where it's actually demanding the truth for the first time in God knows how many hundreds or thousands of years. Like bleeding for the truth, like sexual for the truth, like wanting the truth, digging for the truth, desiring the truth. The truth has never really been a huge demand in this civilization. From my experience, my whole life, I've never really experienced a whole lot of groups of people truly demanding the truth. We are in a shift now where everyone is demanding the truth. And, you know, in the system, out of the system collapsing, this happening, that happening, CBDCs, all these things, people ask me all these things. I don't know, and I don't care, because the thing is it's not
Based.
it's just we learn the truth, we demand the truth, we yearn for the truth, and then we share the truth. How can it go wrong? How can it go wrong? And there are some people who are like, oh no, you know, there's just too much truth. And people are going to use this to go out and buy 480. Well, I hear it, you know, and I understand the concern, because it's like, okay, the economy is going to collapse because everyone's going to go out and buy mansions and Bugattis with free money. I understand the concern. I do understand the concern. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think a small percentage of people may go down that road. Fine. I think that when armed with the truth, 97% of man does the right thing. It's not a difficulty in intent. It's not a difficulty in good versus evil. It's a difficulty in availability of true information. That's what I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. Interesting. Well, it kind of seems like, so for the audience, the first time Brandon and I had spoke, I had not gone through his course, his free course. It is linked in the episode description. I since then have gone through the course, highly recommended, and he gives it away for free. Really, you pay for it with your time, and honestly, I think that's even still a tiny amount to invest into this. My position at this point just seems like, regardless of what's going to happen or might possibly maybe happen, this is a solution that we should all be taking, because even if things don't catastrophically collapse, you know, ram into the wall at 100 miles an hour, even if things just stay the same, this is a peaceful solution to a very possibly violent end. And I don't see anything else that could be worthwhile at this point, as far as trying to live the life that we all want to live. Because, I mean, you don't want to worry about this stuff, right? Like, ultimately, perfect world. We don't have to worry about a government basically creating trusts and taking away our consent, our authority to be able to enslave us into a system that they've rigged against us. Like, I don't think anyone wants to worry about that. So let's exit.
We're living through a story no different than any book or video game anyone's ever seen, or movie. Without the villain, without the horrific storyline of like near-death experience, do you even have a story?
Yeah, no.
You don't have a story.
Or a very boring one.
We are living a human experience. It's literally that simple. And for you to worry about the human experience is to worry about nature itself. Why don't you worry about gravity? Why don't you worry about the way that an apple grows? Why don't you worry about the way that electrical magnetism occurs? Why not worry about that? No one worries about that because they think it's crazy. Well, why is living the human experience any different?
Fair. One kind of I guess semi-related question before we get back into some technical stuff is I wanted to ask your opinion. There was that video from WEF, the World Economic Forum, that kind of just sparked all of this stuff with them, and it was the you'll own nothing and be happy. I assume you've probably seen that, or at least the screenshots of it. What's your opinion about such a statement, such a proposed world?
It's already done. It's not you will. It's already done. When you register your car with the state and you get a certificate of title, certificate means copy of or evidence that something exists someplace else. And then if you look on there, you'll see the term registered owner. If you type in legal definition of registered owner, you will see that let's see here. We need to look at the Black's Law definition. Investopedia, Justitia. Let's see here. Legal definition of registered owner, Black's Law. Registered owner. Owner whose name is recorded in a security issuer's registers as the security's owner and is entitled to receive dividend or interest and principal payouts. And then you look up the word owner, and the word owner, there could be many types of owner. Owner is not as explicit as people normally think it is. The word to describe ownership, that actually is a lot more absolute, and it actually is within the confines of what most people think the definition of the word owner actually is actually the word dominion. So if you say, I own this property, that could mean a lot of different things in law. If you say, I have dominion over this property, that's a lot closer to what people believe the word owner means. Owner could be a partial owner, beneficial owner, registered owner, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on and on and on and all these things, right? So what happens is that you're actually donating your car to the state, and you're basically kind of paying to be in this sort of like trust with the state, where the state is like the trustee and you're like the beneficiary. And that's how police give you tickets, because what's happening is you're essentially donating your car to the state, and the police are policing property that is owned essentially by the state as the trustee. So people already don't own anything, because your property deed, your quitclaim deed or your warranty deed, is underneath the county of which you live, County of Los Angeles. And you pay real estate taxes to County of Los Angeles, and you have to pull permits with County of Los Angeles. Now, if you really believe that you own that property, it's a certificate of a quitclaim deed or a certificate of a warranty deed. And the reason why is because County of Los Angeles is the superior title holder. You've donated through escrow, through a title company, through whatever. You've donated that property to the state. And basically what happened is you entered into a commercial interaction where you said, hey, you guys help me make sure I don't dig up an electrical line and kill myself. You guys make sure that I can get gas lines. You guys do all these things. You guys help me coordinate and strategize and naturalize and stabilize the various aspects to my property, and you assist me in taking care of this property. And in exchange, you will have superior ownership, and I will pay you a tithe called property taxes.
Boo.
Pulling permits is essentially considered a service. It's like going to dad and being like, Dad, I got this issue with this girl. What do I do? It's the same thing. County, I want to put down this pole barn. What do I do? Am I going to be digging into sewer lines? Am I going to be digging into water lines? Am I going to be digging into electrical lines? Am I going to kill myself? Am I going to burst a sewer line? Is there going to be sewage all over my property that's going to destroy my property, destroy my house, destroy my floors, destroy my land? Don't you worry. We got it all figured out. We got it all mapped. We'll bring somebody out. We've got surveyors. We've got it all. We'll do anything you want. We'll figure it all out. Okay. So the problem is that, again, it's not lacking in anything but true information, because the thing is that when people know the true information of the contractual obligations of which they've placed themselves inside of unknowingly, now they can choose willingly if they would like to continue to participate in that now knowing contractual obligation, or if they would like to exit and eliminate that contractual obligation, which is entirely and completely an option that they have and have had that they never knew they had. It's a lack of true information. It's a lack of the information that the computer, which is someone's mind, needs to make an educated decision for what is best for them. There are many people who may decide after learning what I teach to continue to do the same thing they were already doing. The problem is they're never really ever going to truly be doing the same thing they were doing before, because they at least are aware of what is going on. So even if there was some excessive goofiness associated with something that they may want to continue to do, they will raise their voice and say, well, hold on there a second, So it's even if it appears from the external that it is the same, it's never truly the same. Ever.
I mean, it does make sense that there is nothing that we already own. Even if somebody holds the deed, I mean, there's eminent domain. And how could you pay taxes on something you already own? Is that concept is crazy to me.
Yeah. Now, if you disconnect your property with the county, you are no longer obligated to receive police and fire services. Now, what is stopping you from going to the police, going to the fire department, and going to any other local department and creating a private contract, maybe with a monthly subscription fee, like a Netflix? There is absolutely nothing stopping that from occurring, but there are many people who don't feel comfortable doing something like that. There are many people who don't feel comfortable driving up to the fire department, explaining all this, and working out a private contract and then paying monthly on that. So they may find it more comfortable to just continue with what they're doing now. It all depends on many different things. If it's a generational farm that's been passed down from generation to generation, chances are there's almost nothing in the whole goddamn world that would stop that person from wanting to connect that thing from the county once they find out what this is. I mean, you couldn't show up with fucking guns. That guy's gonna blast through everybody, So it goes from that all the way up to old lady. She's dying. She doesn't really give a fuck. She learns this and she doesn't really care. She's living out her last days. She has no interest in going through all that craziness, and she understands, and she willingly and knowingly decides to continue the way she's going, and I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem is that she didn't know. That's the problem.
So obviously you've worked with a lot of people to help them in their journey. Have you come across anyone that maybe have started the journey, but then made up their minds? It's like, nah, this is the choice. I'm used to it. And just keep living in the system.
I see a lot of that. I don't see a lot of that. I see some of that, but it's not really that kind of behavior. It's more of, I have a family and I'm terrified because my family could be put at risk and I want to do all of this. And if I was single, I didn't have children, then I would do it. But like right now, I'm like really, really scared to do this. I see, if anything would fit that category, that's how it would be described.
Interesting. I mean,
When there's no kids involved, I almost never see that, literally. It's very rare. The only time I ever see it is a single woman who's by herself, who's struggling financially, and she's already kind of barely has her head above water. Because women intrinsically care a lot more about relationships. Women intrinsically care more about like the structure of like a social matrix. Men are willing to just smash through walls and burn the whole city to the ground if they feel that that's the right thing to do, if they feel that it's the just thing to do. So men have more of a tendency to do that. Men could be sleeping on a cot in an alleyway in the snow, and they'll do this shit. It's hilarious, actually. So it just depends. It just depends on a lot of different factors. But when children, especially small children, start to get into play, the amount of reluctance goes very high on this.
it seems to me that would be like the deciding factor, though, is to do it to protect them.
There's a lot of that too.
The fear.
There's a lot of that too. There's a lot of young kids, and the dads are going 9,000 miles an hour to try to figure it out because they want what's best for their kid. It goes both ways. Ways. A lot of it just comes down to how much time are you investing and how much time are you willing to invest to study this to increase your own understanding. If you're working all day long and you don't really care and it's just kind of whatever, you're probably going to fit the category of I'm scared and I have kids and I'm not going to do it. If you're burning up and you're like, this is the craziest shit ever, like me, and you're just like, you can't think of anything else, you can barely even have sex because all you can think about is legal terms, chances are you're going to be in the latter category where, you're going to be in the category of, I am going to do this, I am going to move forward because I want a greater future for my children. So I feel like it just depends on how into it you are and how much you're willing to invest in the knowledge of this,
So, say for a moment, I just hearing about this is first time I'm interested in taking your course. It seems to me that there is a healthy level of fear in this. This goes against so many things that almost all of us were taught, and that's scary. What are some legitimate things that a new person who has just heard about this, what are things that I should legitimately have a healthy fear of?
I mean, fear is normal. I mean, I still have fear about a lot of things. I don't really necessarily, I mean, that's the whole point of the motorcycle culture. That's the beauty of the motorcycle culture. The motorcycle culture, and the reason why I love motorcycles and the reason why motorcycle people are so connected and we wave at each other and we're best friends as soon as we meet each other is because we don't dislike our fear. We embrace it, and to the point where almost we enjoy it. We learn to enjoy the fear forces you and ejects you from the past and the present into past and the future into the present. Fear, I would say, if I had to translate what that means in a motorcyclist's world, is fear is an excessive connection with the present that is terrifying. And I would say that you can enjoy that fear. You can enjoy that connection with the present. You can enjoy that. It is very lively. Fear is very lively in a way. It's a very visceral. It's a very lively. I mean, with enough fear, fear gets high enough, and you have extrasensory perceptions, you have out of body experiences, you have your whole life flashing before your eyes, where it appears that 8 seconds goes on for hours. You have this weird manipulation of time. You have so many things that occur, and you have to realize that there's something very fear is not this horrible thing that is to be avoided. Fear is the emotional reaction to going outside of your comfort zone, is the emotional reaction to growth. And you don't have to go 80 or 90% out of your comfort zone. You can go 5 or 10 or 15% out of your comfort zone. Just do it consistently. And if you do that consistently, you will get far fast. You don't need to. There's a lot of guys that go 80 or 90% out of their comfort zone and they burn out real quick. That's not necessarily the best way to do it. 5, 10, 15% is all you need. So fear is also something that you should have some awareness of your own control over. It's like pushing down a gas pedal. Yeah, if you push down the gas pedal 90% and it scares you to death, okay, fine. You don't have to do that. You can push the gas pedal down 10%. But we're trying to be macho. We're trying to be dudes. We're trying to be big shots, so we do the 90%. And that's how these guys that go up in the fucking crest and go up in the fucking mountains here in California kill themselves on motorcycles, because they're going around a corner and they're 70% out of their comfort zone. And they tap that front brake a little too hard and they high side and the whole fucking front end of the bike goes up and they fly off the side of the canyon at 80 miles an hour and they die. And their body has to be helicopter airlifted off the side of the mountain. And they've been torn in half by branches of trees that they hit with their body being flung through the air. It's stupid.
Hesitation.
Well, it's hesitation when you're way, 80, 90% of your comfort zone. It's unnecessary. Women don't do that. Women do not do that. Women will go like 10, 15% out of their comfort zone and they're like, fuck this. Like, I am done. They will tap the fuck out, right? And that's interesting. You also, you don't hear women flying off the side of the fucking mountains on a motorcycle, all the time. You know what I mean? Only men do that. Men are doing crazy shit and setting their hair on fire and drinking fucking an entire bottle of honey jack and doing all these things and shooting guns in the air and fucking setting themselves on fire.
Friday night.
I mean, yeah, I've done that my whole life too. So it's like, whatever, but I'm just saying, like, women just don't do that. Women will do the 5, 10, 15% and they'll do it over a prolonged period of time and they'll always wind up in the same spot. But a man will wind up there with bashes and bruises and broken limbs, and she'll end up there with looking great because she didn't go 70 or 80% out of her comfort zone. So fear is within our control, and fear is not something that necessarily is to be avoided. I think that's ridiculous. The problem is not your fear. The problem is the fear of other people around you. That's the real deadly one. You tell people about this and they all think you're batshit crazy and then they leave you and then you're feeling lonely and all this. It's actually not your fear. It's actually the fear of the people around you that you should be careful of. In my opinion.
I would have to agree. Okay. Another hypothetical. I'm decided I'm doing this. I'm going through your course. And, I've watched this interview. I've watched plenty of other interviews with you. What is any things I need to bring with me to class, metaphorically, start down this path to get ready? Because, I mean, this is a big shift. This isn't just like I decided to start doing my hair differently one day. Like, this is like, once this is done, it's a forever life-changing choice to make. So, but yeah, what do I need to bring with me to class? And then I guess to round that off, what is it, or at least are there any big things that somebody is giving up out of our normal life that we're used to after all of this is done?
No, you don't need to bring anything with you, and the only thing that you're going to be giving up is maybe an excuse to be a victim. I don't know. I mean, that's
Based.
pretty much it. If you really enjoy being a victim and you really enjoy the excuses associated with being a victim, this will strip you dry. There's no question about it. This is not really an arena for victim-minded people. And this is not really an arena for people who are not looking to... Sovereignty is a mentality. Sovereignty is a mindset. Sovereignty is the behavior of sovereignty. I teach a lot of things. I teach about how to get special passports and how to print up crazy license plates and how to do all this shit and paperwork and IRS and bills of exchange and all. But at the end of the day, what does it really boil down to? It boils down to mindset. It boils down to mentality. It boils down to how you view yourself. It boils down to identity. How do you treat other people? How do you treat people with respect, with courtesy, with decorum, with morality? Basically, in a nutshell, what I teach, if you were to really boil it down to its basic simplicity, is to stop operating in local law and to begin operating at the international law level, which is where all the big boys operate, right? When you operate at the international law level, which you can operate at right now, there's nothing stopping you from operating at the international law level. I operate my entire life at the international law level. It is a completely different everything. Everything is completely different. All the definitions are different. All the paperwork is different. The mentality is different. Everything is different. And when you operate at the international law level, you are going to work a lot harder to serve others, but at the same time, you are going to reap massive, monstrous benefits of which your greatest desires and greatest thoughts you've had your whole life. But the thing is that at the same time, you live to serve. So it goes both ways. You will live to serve first, and then secondarily, you will be given everything you've ever wanted plus a whole lot more forever. So it goes both ways. It starts with service and it ends with total abundance in every single area of your life at the international law level.
You mentioned being able to work in and out of the system. It seems that once you go through this, it's a lot more ethical and moral way to do things, because then at least if you decide to work within the system, you know what you're getting into. So exactly, just as an example, because obviously it seems like it would most likely be different for everyone, but what, in your opinion, not advice, what would be a good idea to maybe look at doing inside the system, and not outside the system?
Give me that one again, or maybe in a different way so I can...
What is, after you've gone through the course, you've done all of this, you've got all your contracts done, and you're sitting there, what now? What is something that might be better done within the system than outside the system?
I see. It doesn't make any difference. It's all the same shit. I mean, eventually, as people learn more and more about this, you're starting to see this now a little bit in the media. There was that thing, everyone's been sending it to me. I haven't really looked into it too much. I don't really care that much. But there's this whole school board that they went in and like served documents and said like, you never pledged an oath to the Republic of blah, 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 and you're pledged an oath to a foreign corporation, blah, blah. So you're starting to see a little bit of this sort of bleed into that, right? But none of these people that are on any of these school boards know any of this information at all. They have no idea what any of these people are talking about. So Have fun with that. It's cool though. I'm not like making fun of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's cool. It's cool to start seeing some of this stuff happen in the mainstream. It's just that they assume that these people know on these school boards, and these people absolutely positively have not even the slightest clue about any of what they're saying. So whatever. But the thing is that what's going to happen is that slowly over time, this seemingly infinite aspect of this false incorporated government is going to start to shrink, and we're going to see a renaissance of actual non-incorporated original government, which appears to be currently non-existent. We are going to see that start to grow more and more and more, and it's going to be an exact translation ratio of minus 5% to the fake incorporated system equals a plus 5% for the unincorporated original system. So if you were to have a double graph, you're going to see this graph's high as hell like this, and this graph's super low, and then as time progresses, these graphs are going to normalize and stabilize somewhere in the middle. Somewhere along that process, something very big is going to happen. I don't know when. It could be 50-50. It could be 30-70. It could be 70-30. It could be anything. Something's going to happen. Now, the thing is that I don't even mind if staying in the system and people want to stay in the system. And then what happens is at that point, the banks just pay for everything and everything's free for everybody. And everybody has food and everybody has this and everybody has that. And I think that we're going to have a renaissance of art. Massive renaissance of art, massive renaissance of paintings, sculptures, massive renaissance of music, massive renaissance of architecture, I think is one thing that's really gone, that is really beautiful.
100% agreed.
You see old banks and old buildings, and you go to France, which I haven't done, but you go to these different places and you see these different things. It took a lot of these guys years to paint and to build these sculptures and these monuments and these buildings, and that was considered a living painting to these people. This was a very beautiful thing. Everybody, I'm sure, every day, everybody in town stopped by when these guys were doing these things, and they wanted to look, and they wanted to see, and they wanted to see the updates, and they wanted to see the new marble and the new sculptures, and it was just the talk of the town, and it was beautiful, and it was amazing. And the guy loved it, and he woke up every day, and he couldn't wait to start, and he didn't want to leave, and it was just a renaissance of art, I believe, is going to occur. Now, people are going to have to make a choice. Do they want everything to be for free, and do they want to keep the Federal Reserve System, or do they want to take it all, throw it in the nearest trash can, and do they want us to revert to a very, very simple system where there is almost no laws? It's very, very simple, where we just have gold and silver coins. Now, when you have gold and silver coins, you don't have inflation, you don't have all the craziness, you don't have Wall Street, you don't have any of these things. So you can work 20 hours a week at McDonald's, and you can have a big, huge house and 5 kids and 4 cars and everything. And it's just like the buying power of a gold and silver coin is so high that it's just insane. So either infinite money forever or gold and silver coins, which is basically if you can literally have any value at all to anything anywhere in society, if you can paint a wall or cut grass or make people feel good or any value at all that you could deliver to almost anyone, and you'll be just fine financially. So either way, I feel is a pretty bright future. Are we going to have both of those and people are going to choose individually which one? Or are we going to have some sort of like an overthrow situation where it's all going to become... It won't all become infinite money. If there's an overthrow or like a real like intense reaction by the public in terms of them not liking it or them wanting change, it'll be the gold and silver coin side of the spectrum. It will not be the infinite money side of the spectrum. The reason why is because the infinite money side of the spectrum is so complicated that it upsets people. They don't want all of that complication. They want something very, very simple, very, very easy to manage, very, very easy to understand, very, very easy to confront. Gold and silver coins fits that category. Infinite money does not fit that category.
So that's a term that you've mentioned a few times. Can you give a quick synopsis of infinite money?
So infinite money is just like I said before at the beginning. It's like the negotiable instruments, and it's the release and exchange of negotiable instruments, and understanding like the banking terminology behind how those things work, and then getting loans and getting promissory notes to instantaneously discharge off of themselves, which is how the society and the incorporated world is supposed to be operating since 1933, because all of these things are all obligations or other securities of the United States in accordance with Title 18 of the United States Code, subsection 8.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a lot of this is learning this new language to speak what the definitions are, because it seems like that's what the king has so rightfully or unjustifiably done, is create a whole new language for him and they to be able to speak to keep us out.
Basically. But it's the worst part about it is it's all words that we're so used to using that we never question the words. That's the secret. That's the black magic. It's not like they use, there's a lot of Latin terms and stuff too. They don't use those. They use all the ones that we use every day. They use the most common parlance possible. And then there's all these legal definitions that are not new. They're very old, actually. Sometimes 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120 years old. Those are the definitions that they use specifically. So it appears to be the same language when in fact it is entirely different language. And that's the part that's tricky.
And it seems like that's done on purpose to kind of throw people off. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of words that we use in everyday life, but legally speaking are way different.
Yeah.
So one thing that I personally can't stand, well, there's a couple of groups of people I can't stand, and that's fake patriots, people who, are all rah about America, love the Constitution, all these things, but then they'll turn around and justify the state somehow, and it's like, well, you kind of got to choose one or the other here. I have a couple of friends within the 9/11 truth movement, or what's left of it, and the kooks that deny airplanes or just push stupid things, just very, very stupid things, just make it harder on everyone else and kind of delegitimize the movement in the first place. And it kind of seems like within your realm, there is the sovereign citizens who do almost the exact opposite of everything that you're trying to teach. So what's your opinion of this phenomenon?
There are people who learn about maybe one or two items of this. A lot of them are facing jail time or whatnot. They're very desperate. And then what happens is, or they're not, and they're just very angry. And they take one or two small pieces of information and they apply those one or two small pieces of information in a very hostile, demeaning, and vengeful way. And then what happens is that small section, or I think at one point in time, a couple of years ago, I think it accounted for a lot of people trying to do this because there wasn't a lot of cohesive information available. But nowadays, there's this whole new breed of individual that is coming out of that, where they tend to want to study a lot before they take action, and they don't take action very rapidly, myself being one of those people. And they operate within the confines of the understanding rather than in the confines of an emotional reaction. And these people, another thing, for example, is they get called paper terrorists because they send in 5,000 pieces of paper to a courtroom. Now, the thing is that how do you expect, it's no different than when Congress receives a new bill and it's 6,000 pages long, and on page 3,781, it's got something about, sending money to Ukraine. And it's like, they have 48 hours to read 6,000 pages of documents. It's the same idea, right? You're not going to send in a 5,000 page document to a court and then expect everything to go hunky dory. They can't actually do their job when you send in a 5,000 page pieces of paper. So they get labeled as paper terrorists. There's a lot of emotion associated with people who behave in that way. Fuck these people, fuck the courts, fuck this. They go on and on and on and on and on. A lot of times what they really want and what the actual problem is buried underneath thousands or hundreds of pages of just trash and emotional craziness. I actually don't personally disagree with the frustrations and difficulties that the judicial system has had with people of which they call sovereign citizens. I actually myself would not want to personally deal with these people at all. So, I actually understand the difficulties that they go through, and I understand the difficulties that police go through, and I understand the tremendous hostility and tremendous screaming, angry, hostile behavior that they may go through. Yes, a private security force that's supposed to be policing people who live in the District of Columbia should not be pulling people over on the side of the road and giving them tickets for silliness, for silly traffic laws, traffic infractions, which are the definition of the word traffic means commercial flow. So yes, there's falsities there. But then on the other side, to be screaming and very, very violent and reaching around under your seat, there's two sides to the coin on that. So, and then you could say like, well, the person in the car wouldn't have to act like that had the police officer never pulled them over in the first place. Yes, fine, that's true, but I'm not thinking from a perspective of some philosophical hierarchy. This is just, it is what it is. We are where we are. There's police. They pull people over. They think they can. They think all these things. We live in that world now. Is there a better world? Is there this? Is there that? Yes. I don't think these people are running around thinking I'm going to pull this guy over and handcuff him and beat the shit out of him and take his car. And I just don't think a lot of cops think that way. I think a small percentage of them do. I know many police officers. My brother's a police officer. And I've talked to many of them, and the ones that I've talked to and the ones I've had the pleasure to experience, I've never seen that. So the thing is that, you get pulled over. Okay, fine. It's not the best situation. It's ridiculous. The fact that there's this thing and there's traffic laws, and then there's a certificate of title, which means that the state owns your vehicle. And then there's these silly license plates that mean that you have a motor vehicle, which is a commercial vehicle. And then registration tags are actually just the motor vehicle theft prevention program from the United States Code, which basically states that you sign over the fact that you're actually, the way registration is supposed to work is you're actually supposed to give the police or the Department of Motor Vehicles a timeline of different times of the week of what is going to be operated in that motor vehicle and who's going to be driving that motor vehicle. And registration, the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program, is actually a voluntary program where what you're doing is you're waiving all of your rights in an effort to allow police to pull over the vehicle in order to check and make sure that whoever's driving that vehicle in that moment is legally registered as the person who should be driving that motor vehicle given that date and time of the week. It's called the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. So the thing is that the police don't know any of this. None of it. There's probably not one cop in the whole fucking country that knows that that's what this is. They think it's a sticker that goes on the back of a metal plate that goes on the back of a bumper, and they don't have a fucking clue what it is or what it means, just like everybody else. And if anybody thinks that any cops know or think they know that the registration is the theft prevention, Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program of, I believe it's like 34 USC 12611. 34 USC 12611. Yep. 34 USC 12611. Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. I'll share a screen. If anybody believes that any police officer or anybody at the DMV or anybody anywhere else has even the slightest clue that this is what registration is, you are dismally wrong. And if there's any police officer that may kind of find out, maybe from someone like me getting pulled over, they're going to bring it up to their department, and they're going to get fucking transferred out of traffic. Okay, so that's how it works. And you say like, oh well, they get transferred out of traffic because they're trying to hide all this. Well, look, the chief of police and the police and these guys, they think they need to make revenue. They've got pressure. They've got political pressure. Maybe they just don't want to deal with it. And it's just like fucking not something they want to get into. And it's just too big for their minds. And they just get overwhelmed and they say, fuck it. If you feel uncomfortable with this, then we're going to transfer you, you know. And it's really not as evil and as bad as what people think when it comes to the actual intent. Is it good or is it the best thing in the world? No. But I don't believe that there's police chiefs in the back fucking wringing their hands together. I get the fucking revenue. And somebody comes in and goes, hey, I have a question for you. Is registration motor vehicle theft prevention program? I mean, I just don't think it's this like fucking, Batman and Robin fucking thing where you got the penguin in the back and swinging his cane around and he hears about the fucking motor vehicle theft prevention program and get the fuck, you're getting transferred out of fucking traffic. I don't think it's like that. So you have here, in general, the motor vehicle theft prevention program developed pursuant to this section shall include a uniform design or designs for decal or other devices to be displayed by motor vehicles participating in the program, which is a little dumbass sticker. The uniform design shall be highly visible. They're usually like very colorful and very reflective, and they usually have holograms in them and all sorts of craziness. Explicitly state that the motor vehicle to which it is affixed may be stopped under the specified conditions without additional grounds for establishing a reasonable suspicion that the vehicle is being operated unlawfully. So you have this thing called RAS, reasonable articulable suspicion. Now, nobody knows, even the audit guys that go around and audit First Amendment and do all this craziness, nobody knows. You hear this all the time. Oh, they even train the guys when they pull. You have to have reasonable, articulable suspicion to pull over a motor vehicle. That's actually false. If the motor vehicle has current registration tags that are not expired, and they are correct, technically speaking, the police officer does not need any reasonable, articulable suspicion at all to detain you or your motor vehicle. Now, if you have expired registration or if you never paid for registration, that wouldn't apply. So it's totally crazy. Most people can't even think with this because their head starts to hurt. If you have expired registration tags or if you don't have any registration tags at all, they would need reasonable, articulable suspicion to detain you or your motor vehicle. If you have current registration tags, they absolutely do not. They need absolutely no reason, no justification. I'm not even sure they would even need to tell you anything, and they could legally pull you over. Now, when they legally pull you over, they ask for ID. Now, they don't know why. They don't know why they're doing this. The reason why they're doing this is because they need to identify the registered owner and they need to relate the registered owner with said motor vehicle as per the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. Police do not know that all they are doing in a traffic stop is they are administering a voluntary program. Section C, voluntary consent form. The voluntary consent form used to enroll in the program shall clearly state that participation in the program is voluntary. Clearly explain that participation in the program means that if the participating vehicle is being operated under the specified conditions, law enforcement officials may stop the vehicle and take reasonable steps to determine whether it is being operated by or with the consent of the owner, even if the law enforcement officials have no other basis for believing that the vehicle is being operated unlawfully. Did anyone tell you this when you bought your registration sticker?
Hell no.
That's the issue. See? The issue is lack of true information. Now, you can blame the DMV, but no one in the DMV knows this. No one in the DMV knows any of this information.
So, well, one last thing just on the sovereign citizens. It's such an ignorant position, in my opinion. Although I do sympathize with the idea, but I mean, being an asshole is not going to get you too many places.
Yeah.
Especially being an asshole to a cop, whether they're right or wrong. On the side of the road is not the time to sit and argue with them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you kind of just got to do what they say. You can take them on later, but on the side of the road, especially if you're by yourself, there's a lot of accidents that could happen. It's really pointless, for my opinion. And if somebody is actually serious about doing anything such as this, then it seems like what you offer and what so many other people have written about, done YouTube channels for, is the appropriate way to go and the appropriate way to handle this.
Yeah.
Luckily, the movement, I guess, has kind of died out, so you shouldn't have to be overshadowed by them, like, some of the other, like the 9/11 Truth movement. Loose Change, that documentary, is kind
that's
of
a good
like,
one. Yeah.
it's just it's wild. But so moving on from them, from the perspective of a person, like I said, that's just heard about this, what does it look like once you've got that final contract, you're done? Like, I mean, do topless angels come down and like sing you a song and be like, this is so wonderful?
I wish.
But like, what is it like when you finally have that? You're outside the system, because all everyone knows is inside the system.
Well, exiting the system, you experience a lot of fear, but then once you're outside the system, then a lot of that fear subsides to a lot of degree. And then as you continue your discovery, it starts to unlock infinite money, and then you can have whatever you want, and then you start looking at the world very differently, because Bugattis and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and mansions and these things kind of lose a lot of their luster. There's not a whole lot of interest, in my opinion. I think it's actually the opposite. A lot of people are like, oh, if they have infinite money, they'll go around and buy everything. The day you wake up and really realize you have infinite money, like for real, and you know you can get it, you just don't really care anymore. Yeah, I mean, if I had a family, for sure, there's no question about it, I'd probably get a big house for my family, but it wouldn't be for me. I got a great apartment. I got great fans. I got a great fan base. I've got a great life. I've got a great car, great motorcycle. I mean, my motorcycle is really all I use anyways. I don't really care too much. I mean, if you think about it, even from a philosophical point, let's say, for example, a guy putting up Lamborghinis and diamond watches on his Instagram. I mean, what's he trying to do? He's trying to either attract business relationships or women. But the thing is that when you understand women and women love you, you don't, the impetus behind why you'd place a Lambo and a diamond watch on Instagram is no longer relevant. So, it just comes down to a scarcity versus abundance in every area of your life. If you don't have a scarcity mindset, the whole system that we live in, this whole fucking world that we live in, the entire monster system, the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars a day that are spent on media and fluoride in the water and all the craziness, everything that you see, everything that you could talk about, it's all financed, and it's financed in order to create an illusion of scarcity in your world, because that illusion of scarcity is what causes anxiety and allows them to control you, right? Abundance is a mindset. When you start to actually have infinite money and you start to actually have women in your life and you actually start to have love in your life, very, very rapidly that destitute, broke, scarcity mindset breaks, and you realize that it had nothing to do with all of this, because you now don't have it, let's say, but you don't care because you just had a bunch of it, and now you're like satiated, you're like whatever, it's like fine. And you realize that the scarcity versus an abundance mindset is literally just all in your head. And I think the cool thing about a lot of this information is that's a huge part of the process of the learning of this information, is that you learn that there is no scarcity. Scarcity is literally just in your head, and it's being programmed into your skull with the biggest goddamn every single direction that you can possibly turn. Anything that you could say or consume is part of this nebulous illusion production facility that is designed to create the illusion of scarcity in a world where there's women walking everywhere, there's money everywhere. It's actually kind of hilarious if you think about it. Once you get to a certain point, it's almost humorous. It's ridiculous. And the thing is that, you know, this study is a study in abundance. It's an abundance of money. It's an abundance of freedom. In fact, so much freedom that it terrifies some people. There's a lot of people who don't trust themselves enough to be given this much freedom. So is the issue freedom, or is the issue self-esteem? Is the issue freedom, or is the issue self-worth? Is the issue freedom, or is the issue self-trust? You know?
Sounds like we're all institutionalized.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
We'll start wrapping up here soon, so I don't keep you too long.
Cool.
So to me, which is why even after our discussion the first time, for everything that I value, which is liberty, truth, and of course I run off reason, logic, and evidence. This seems like probably the most important thing that almost anyone can do. Mind you, I decided to run for office again locally. Why, I don't know. Other than just to have another option on the ballot. Although I personally, even at the local level, I don't see it meaning a whole lot. It means something. Just not really sure what. But this, out of maybe diversifying your finances, you know, having the gold, having the silver. My favorite is gold backs. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
Got them right here, bro. Look at it. Check it out.
Hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I love gold backs.
I bought a big ass
That's the shit
package.
right there.
But I got gold coins. I got silver coins. I got big ass gold coins. I got, you know what I just bought? I just bought, I follow a couple of really cool currency auction Instagram accounts that I love. HA Currency, I think, is one of them. There's another one, I forget the name. I go on there. I've been buying like Confederate notes, like old state notes where like the states created their own local currency. Yeah. Bro, I want all this shit. I want to see all of it. I want to read all of it. I want it all over my desk, bro. Like I want to be engrossed in it. I want all of it. I mean, gold and silver coin is for the purists, you know, and then gold backs is like 1 millimeter away from purist. You know what I mean? It's like very, very close to purist, but it's not quite purist, you know, if you really go by the definitions. I am a purist at heart, but I still really like and enjoy the gold backs. I enjoy the marketing. I enjoy the system that they're building of people who can accept them. I enjoy the artistic way in which they are designed and the colors. I enjoy a lot about it, even though it isn't technically a purist activity.
I like variety.
Yeah. So it is very and you start studying a lot of the history of currency. You've got silver certificates, you've got gold certificates, you've got Indian currency, you've got national currency, you've got Confederate currency, you've got state currency, you've got county currency if you go back far enough. And if you follow a lot of these auctions where they get their hands on some of this old ass shit and they auction it off and sell it, you get to see all sorts of crazy stuff, man. You get to
Oh
see
yeah,
a lot of cool stuff, man. A lot of cool
coins
stuff.
that were temporarily made. And,
Oh God. I
yeah.
mean, so much wildness. So, really a lot of fun, very educational. Shows you the timeline of how long it took them to fully disconnect gold and silver coins from the paper monetary system. They worked on that for a very long time, 100+ years of work,
Bastards.
150 years of work.
Yeah.
Impressive that you could sustain that much effort and work for that long in order to achieve a goal that you would like to have. It's actually kind of impressive in a way. Very insane, but very impressive. And yeah,
So all of these things seem incredibly important to me. It's just the idea of being enslaved. I just can't even say obviously any positive aspect about it at all. Um, and even down to the point where privacy is a massive issue for me. Um, Pretty much trying to utilize technology to promote privacy, which it's try to talk to people about things they don't understand and try to tell them privacy is important. And well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. Yeah, okay. But being able to embrace all of these things, what you teach seems like the pinnacle. I just can't think of anything more important. Obviously, all of these things are incredibly important, but I think from where we are, uh, the tyrannical jackboot is down and it keeps stomping on us, and it's not going to go away, and we can't really change that system. So just exit and just leave it. Leave it respectfully, but leave it nonetheless. So my hat's off to you for, stepping up and doing this. I think it's an incredible service to people. I guess one last thing that I would ask about going through the process and everything is in the course, and anyone who goes and takes the course will see this, but you had mentioned how some people will take it like once, maybe watch it through one more time, and then they're good. But you emphasize to not send a damn thing until you are 100% positive on all of this.
at least 80%, but yeah, pretty solid. Yeah.
Because you could really fuck things up, right?
At the time, I thought so because the course was 2 years ago. But now, after seeing all the crazy, stupid shit people have been sending in for 2 years, I've actually sort of retracted a lot of that. Impressively, shockingly, unless you're emotionally vengeful or hostile, unless you attack emotionally, I've seen a lot of stupid shit sent in. Nothing happens. I've seen stupid shit sent in that isn't even legal and it gets processed. I've seen all sorts of things.
That's wild.
Because people just don't fucking know. They just don't know. You can send in shit that ain't even fucking legal. There's a chance they may fucking just do it. I'm serious.
Well, I mean that the IRS does say to claim your stolen goods on your tax return, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, the IRS is the only organization that chances are you send in some shit that's like weird, they won't, it may slide past, but if you send in shit that does work, that is right, they won't send it back to you. They're just very They're just very easy to work with. They're very they just follow the law really well. They're the only one that does. In a world where no one follows the law, the only organization that does follow the law is considered the devil, which is hilarious. The Internal Revenue Service is like the only organization that follows the law. Seriously, there's almost nobody else. There's literally almost nobody else walking the earth, walking this country, that follows the law as anywhere near as good as the Internal Revenue Service.
What are the odds? What are the
Probably
genuine
because
odds?
the Internal Revenue Service just no one really cares. They just operate strictly off of the policies and the rules and the laws. So it's just kind of like an unthinking computer. They don't really give a shit. They're just there to get paid. Like, who cares? Like, no one's there because they have loyalty to the IRS. So they're not like, you know what I mean? They're just like, what's the policy on this? What's the law on this? And they just kind of operate through sort of an unthinking, you know, that's all. I mean, maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, like, they're just very. They know the law. You don't even need to explain shit to them. You just send shit in, and they'll just, oh yeah, we know what this is. They'll process it, no problem. You know, looks good.
That's wild. Just such a influential organization, and it's just like a still box. You know, no emotion. It's bureaucracy to the fullest extent.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't computerize the IRS. It kind of already is. Like, if you call the IRS and you ask them questions, and they're like, "Oh, give me 1 second," and they like have a little research database that they use. I mean, it's basically computerized, just with human people reading computer printouts. That's really all it is. These people have no clue at all at the IRS. Not a clue. I think every single time I've ever asked anybody on the phone at the IRS a question, they say, "Let me research that, and I'll get it right back to you." They do, though. They figure it out. They always figure it out. Always figure it out. So, you know.
It's like a living, breathing Wikipedia.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah.
That's wild. So we'll wrap up on this. I wanted to ask, now that you've made the course, you've gone through all of this yourself, you're been doing this several years, you're teaching others. What would you do differently if you started it all over today? And what do you think you've enjoyed the most?
I wouldn't change anything. Everything's fine. It's all part of the learning process. There was no huge flat tires or anything like that. It's all been pretty simple. And then the only thing what I enjoy the most is probably litigation at this point, especially. I mean, I'm having a blast. I mean, all these form letters, all this people ignoring you, all this bullshit, and then all of a sudden, like, everybody wants to talk to you. It's fucking beautiful.
That's incredible. Well, on that, let people know where they can find you, what you have going on, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so for many years I was trying to do all sorts of goofy things, like send Polaroids and love letters and all sorts of good stuff, trying to get my orders completed, my legal orders that are all totally as per the law. I decided one day that I was done trying to mess around with that, so I started getting into mainline litigation, federal litigation, lawsuits, and that kind of thing. Took me quite a long time. Took me several months to kind of, go through it and figure it out and get things rolling. And I started working with a guy named Joey Kimbrough, who's kind of like my right-hand man now, very, very integral. Without him, I wouldn't be doing any of this litigation. Very important. He had already done a bunch of personal litigation and won a bunch of cases and stuff. So he understands the procedure and he understands a lot of really advanced things. He's a very smart guy. And so now what we're doing is we issue orders one time. They get 30 days. If they send back, this isn't a payment, if they send back this, if they close the account, if they do any bullshit that isn't just simply exactly what I ordered them to do, we file federal litigation and we go straight into litigation.
Based.
Very simple. I'm not worried. I'm not anxious. I'm not upset. I'm not losing sleep. It's a systematic approach to get enforcement and completion of that of which is completely legal, of which most companies, besides the Internal Revenue Service, ignore or pretend doesn't exist, or just don't know to the point of extreme levels. Um, and we're just going to hammer on these fuckers ceaselessly and violently, but you know what I mean by that, like very aggressively.
Yeah.
And eventually they're going to wake up to the fact that this is right, this is legal, and then you won't have to pound their doors in to get these things done anymore. Especially when there's 10 or 20 or 50,000 people doing this. So my plan is to learn all this, win some cases, and then I will be creating a second course called the Pro Se Litigant course. And it will be a course that is the A to Z, how to file a lawsuit and run it all the way through to completion. And that will include mindset, and that will include basic information on how to build a complaint and how to get it filed and how to follow up on it and how to answer complaints and how to do counter complaints and all sorts of good stuff. And I intend on giving that course away for free as well. I have all my research at onestupidfuck.com. I have very active social media profiles all on all platforms, mainly Facebook, and I guess Instagram would be the two big ones. I am on Twitter, though. I'm not a big user. Facebook is where I do most of my activities because I'm an original Facebook user from 2006, back when it was just barely started.
I hate Facebook.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people don't like it. And then I have my own law office. It's Williams and Williams Law Firm.com. I have a lot of really good information there as well. A lot of good information there as well, and articles. I wrote a bunch of articles. Those are also there. So both websites have information. Obviously, the main body of information is on onestupidfuck.com. I have the free contract killer course. 39 days, one video per day. It's completely free, and you can sign up for that on onestupidfuck.com.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Everyone still watching. Like I said, I've gone through the course, and it's definitely something I will be doing for myself and for my family as well. But I can't believe he just gives it away for free. It is an incredible, just an incredible wealth of knowledge, and somebody who just loves to learn, first of all, but then anything like this, like I said, I live for being able to subvert the state due to its illegitimacy and its incredible tyrannical treatment of us. This is just, it makes me so excited I can't even speak.
Me too, bro.
So yeah, I highly recommend everyone. And honestly, even if it's not something you do, just go through the course anyways. It's incredible. And then at least that way you can make the informed decision, whether to stay in or outside the system. So on that note, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Rise to Liberty. You can check everything out at risetoliberty.com/links. That is the master link that has everything, all the social medias. Telegram, Twitter, and Instagram are the most active, but we are on Facebook as well. And then that's pretty much that. We are updating a bunch of things, so things have been moving a little slow, but summer's coming up, and there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up. One thing I do want to point out that I need to get better about pointing out is you can now go over to Ko-Fi. It's ko-fi.com, and you can go donate. Of course, anything to help out. Our big tech overlords like to keep us down, keep us not growing. But the podcast is not free to run. And as much as I don't like asking people for money, I want to keep this going. I want to keep us out there, getting this message out, having awesome guests like Brandon on, and being able to delegitimize the state. So if you believe in what we do and want to help, monthly subscriptions are coming, or you can donate a minimum of $2 one time or as much as you would like. And other than that, we're chilling. So thank you so much for tuning in. And Brandon, hang out for a sec until we're out. And everyone else, until next time, stay free, my friends.